This is the IWR News for the week ending August 2nd. In this week's report, shocking videos surface showing that Crooks was clearly visible on the roof of the building in the minutes before he attempted to assassinate Donald Trump. Trudeau attempts to hide $24 billion in expenditures. Immigrants are spreading disease across Canada by defecating in public. A new regular segment, World War Watch. The leftist programming of AI search engines is proven in a new study, and it only took 46 seconds to demonstrate the lunacy of men being allowed to compete in women's Olympic boxing. Those and 9 more stories that mainstream media won't report, and our government doesn't want you to hear. We have more details on the fact that police and Secret Service were aware of Thomas Crooks well in advance of his attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. Text messages show officers responsible for monitoring Trump's Pennsylvania rally spotted his would-be assassin well in advance of the shooting. They flagged Crooks to colleagues as suspicious at least 90 minutes before he opened fire. This updates the previous known time of about 60 minutes. The first screenshot is a group chat of Butler Emergency Service unit officers. An ESU is somewhat similar to a SWAT team. The text reads, "Someone followed our lead and snuck in and parked by our cars. I'm just letting you know because you see me go out with my rifle and put it in my car, so he knows you guys are up there. He's sitting to the direct right on a picnic table about 50 yards from the exit." 2 other counter-snipers responded with a thumbs-up emoji writing, "Roger that." Approximately 45 minutes later, at 5:10 p.m., officers flagged that Crooks was on the move and had positioned himself near the American Glass International, or AGR building, the building he shot from. While Crooks waited, an officer snapped a picture of the 20-year-old suspect, which he included in the text message. "Kid leaning around building we're in. AGR, I believe it is. I did see him with a rangefinder looking towards stage. FYI. If you want to notify SS snipers to look out, I lost sight of him. Also a bike with backpack sitting next to it in rear of building that was not seen earlier. Call into command and have a uniform check it out." James Copenhaver, one of the shooting victims in the Trump assassination attempt, has released video he recorded shortly before being shot, which appears to show Thomas Crooks running across the roof of the AGR building in full view of the Secret Service snipers. The world will see a vibrant Republican Party. 74-year-old Copenhaver and 57-year-old David Dutch were both injured, with both being shot twice. Copenhaver was released from Allegheny General Hospital on July 26th, but remains in a rehabilitation center. Copenhaver was shot in the arm and abdomen. New video footage circulating on Twitter shows police officers running around the low building on top of which Crooks was perched. The officers can be seen looking up at the roof for at least 2 minutes before the shots were fired at Trump. Here are clips from that video. In the final clip, you can hear the shots fired by Crooks, as well as the 9th shot, which was fired by a Butler ESU officer.
If he was doing the job, I wouldn't even be doing this.
There's something going on in this building.
Instead, I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a senator elected and to make sure
oh my God.
we get back to the White House, because if we do, we're going to make
If you haven't seen it yet, I invite you to watch my special report, Who Really Killed Thomas Crooks, which I released this past Wednesday. In that report, I dissect the sound analysis done by Dr. Chris Martenson and reveal that he made a number of errors. I also suggest a strong theory, supported by the sound analysis, of where the 9th shot by a Butler ESU officer was fired from. Kansas Senator Roger Marshall called for the creation of an independent, non-political commission, leaving no rock unturned investigating the Secret Service failures. The Secret Service has had a 48% turnover in a year's time, he said. Barely 50% of them trust their senior leadership. Look, the Secret Service is negligent, incompetent. and there's a cultural failure within their organization. Texas Senator Ted Cruz blasted the political leadership of the Secret Service, calling July 13th the worst and most catastrophic security failure of the Secret Service since 1981, the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. Cruz then raised alleged political motivations driving the Secret Service leadership's decisions. I asked him, is the individual who denied additional coverage for President Trump the same individual who denied coverage for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Utterly indefensible that RFK went months without Secret Service protection. His father was assassinated running for president. His uncle was assassinated when he was president. RFK Jr. had had multiple death attempts, and yet the Biden administration refused to give him Secret Service protection until after the attempted assassination of President Trump. I believe that decision was political. I believe that decision was partisan, and the political leadership of Secret Service understaffed the security detail of President Trump for the same reason they did not provide security to RFK Jr. BC dropped their COVID vaccine mandate for healthcare workers last Sunday, as was announced by Public Health Officer Bonnie Henry. However, I spoke with Ben Turner, president of the Canadian Society for Science and Ethics in Medicine, and in his words, it is far too early to celebrate. Turner holds a master's degree in healthcare ethics. While the announcement from Henry is good news, there are several problems, according to Dr. Turner, a former surgeon in BC. It remains uncertain whether workers will be rehired. The provincial health officer has no control over hiring decisions, except to exclude a large group of people during a prolonged declared emergency. Hiring is managed by health authorities. Bonnie Henry can say that workers are welcome to reapply for their jobs, but she has no power to reinstate them, even if she wanted to. The situation for these essential healthcare workers is dire. A 3-year absence from relevant work poses a significant barrier to rehiring or maintaining a license. Those who worked in other regions without such mandates can account for their time. However, those who stayed in British Columbia, often for family reasons, may never work in their fields again unless substantial measures are taken to correct this. Under BC's Health Professions and Occupations Act, established by Bill 36, a provincial registry of private health information for hospital workers was created. Adrian Dix, BC's Minister of Health, presented this as a mere streamlining of existing data collection by various health authorities. This is misleading. There is a significant difference between having one's health information held by an employer and having it held by the government due to one's place of work. While the former is common in the medical field, the latter is unprecedented. This raises concerns about the still ongoing automatic collection of personal health information in BC. Ethically, and under every law in Canada up until 4 years ago, no one should have access to your health information without your consent. Consent can be presumed for those directly involved in your medical care, but not for others or for different purposes. During the past 4 years, it was common across Canada to legislate by press conference. Although the supposed emergency in BC, which was used to justify this approach, is now officially over, the method persists. Minister Dix stated he would bring a regulation to Cabinet, quote, after work has been done. This regulation would require reporting of vaccination status. In the next sentence, he announced, without citing any legal instrument, that reporting requirements would take effect that same day. This is not how law is made in any country that respects legal process. In Ben's words, while the vaccination mandate was patently against the available science on the day it was released, it has become more so with every one of the 33 months that have passed since. British Columbia was one of the last jurisdictions in the world to bow to reality, and even that bow looks much more like a grudging nod of a sore loser. Our work is far from over. According to a new report, Canada is the most permissive country in the world regarding legal and medical gender transition processes for minors. The study was published by the Calgary-based Aristotle Foundation for Public Policy and Do No Harm, a group of healthcare professionals and policymakers who advocate for keeping identity politics out of medical education, research, and clinical practice. The minimum age for puberty blockers is vastly more liberal in Canada than in any other country, the study found, noting that 8 of 10 provinces have no minimum age requirement. Alberta and Nova Scotia are the only provinces with some age conditions in place. Alberta bans puberty blockers before age 16, while Nova Scotia requires applicants to reach the second stage of puberty which typically occurs between the ages of 11 and 12. 7 of 10 Canadian provinces have no minimum age requirement for cross-sex hormones, with Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Nova Scotia being exceptions. In Alberta and Saskatchewan, hormonal treatment is banned for children 15 years and younger. As with puberty blockers, children in Nova Scotia cannot begin treatment until they reach the second stage of puberty. Most provinces in Canada set 18 as the age of informed consent for sex reassignment surgery, although 4 provinces allow it at earlier ages if the minor is, quote, deemed capable of making informed decisions without parental consent. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland and Labrador follow that philosophy, while Alberta, Ontario, and Prince Edward Island all adhere to the 18 or older rule. In British Columbia, surgery applicants must be 19 or older for bottom reassignment surgery, but permit top surgery with consent of the applicant or their guardians, depending on their assessed capability. In Quebec and Nova Scotia, patients must be at least 18 for bottom reassignment surgery, but can request a mastectomy at the age of 16. Cabinet has abruptly scrubbed dozens of Government of Canada web pages detailing more than $24 billion in payments to COVID contractors. Yes, $24 billion. The publicly accessible database was deleted only weeks after Treasury Board President Anita Anand promised to, quote, make sure we have transparency in government contracting. As of Tuesday, July 9th, the web pages of COVID-19 contracting are no longer available publicly on the Department of Public Works website, according to Jeremy Link, a spokesperson for the department. Payments totaled $24,405,139,945. Anand, in June 19th testimony at the Commons Government Operations Committee, promised trust and transparency in public spending. The Department of Public Works gave no reason for abruptly deleting the COVID accounts. It followed numerous access to information requests for delivery schedules by Blacklocks that made it possible to calculate unit charges for goods like ventilators. Cabinet had repeatedly invoked commercial privacy in refusing to say how much it paid per unit at taxpayers' expense. In a memo to employees obtained by the Western Standard, embattled media company Chorus Entertainment, which owns Global, announced it has hired a new DEI vice president and increased mandatory woke training programs for new hires. New hires will be required to take anti-racism training, assuming there are any going forward. That's because on July 15th, the company announced plans to cut 25% of its workforce, or more than 800 positions. The impacts are already being felt in local newsrooms. Concurrent with the announcement, longtime Calgary news anchor Linda Olson announced her retirement after more than 30 years on air. 4 other senior reporters are either gone already or will be gone in the next few weeks. This past Sunday, weatherman Kevin O'Connell delivered his last forecast after a 30-year career that included stints in Red Deer and as co-host of ITV First News at Edmonton, which morphed into Global News Morning. Also this week, Calgary talk radio station QR 770, exclusive broadcaster of the Calgary Stampeders, was streaming dead air after its FM broadcasting license was revoked by the CRTC in June for non-compliance. That was after Chorus had shuttered Calgary rock station Q107 and fired all its staff in late 2023. But those cutbacks have not extended to senior management, and especially not to the DEI group, whose policies one demoralized insider complained are, quote, shoved down our throats. In releasing quarterly results, Chorus warned markets it may not be able to meet debt covenants and carry on as a going concern past August, which is another way of saying more job cuts are coming if it doesn't go bankrupt first. The company, which once had a market cap in excess of $2 billion, is now essentially worthless. On Tuesday, its shares were trading near their all-time low of 10 cents on the Toronto Stock Exchange. This report is just one example of the investigative journalism I bring you at ironwillreport.com. My efforts to bring you the truth with 2 exclusive interviews and 1 counter-narrative news report each week, as well as with special reports like this past week's report on who really killed Thomas Crooks, are entirely funded by viewer subscriptions. I don't accept government or corporate money of any kind. I work for my viewers. I know it's difficult to get used to the idea of paying for news. Pretty much since radio and TV news started, we've been able to access it for free. But mainstream media can no longer be trusted. They are funded by our government and large corporations, and they work for them. Independent journalists, such as myself, work for our viewers. If you're not paying for your news, someone else is, and that someone else has an agenda. You can get a free 15-day trial at ironwillreport.com without a credit card. You will be granted instant access. See what you're missing at no cost and no obligation. Memberships are just $9.95 per month, or save 20% with a $99 annual membership. We also have 2 offline payment options for those of you concerned about government surveillance. In this week's members version of the IWR News, immigrants are spreading disease across Canada through public defecation. Canada's tax rate has reached unsupportable levels. Construction is halted on an Ontario EV battery plant after Trudeau's government gave them almost $1 billion of our money. A new regular segment, World War Watch, where I bring you updates on the increase in hostilities that are threatening to erupt into World War III. Hackers can now wirelessly read your computer screen. Leftist bias in AI search engines is proven in a new study. The Gates Foundation is caught funding bioterrorism. CDC data shows that vaccine infant deaths have spiked sharply since 2022. Men in Olympic women's boxing. And the latest from the world of the weird, a lunar arc. Over the summer, I'm slowing down a little and only releasing 1 interview per week as I was approaching burnout. I will resume my regular schedule of 2 interviews per week in September. This week, on Sunday, something of a reversal. I was interviewed by Glenn and Eric Metter of the U.S. organization The Privacy Academy. Glenn and Eric were looking to bring news of the political train wreck in Canada to their American viewers, as we are considered their canary in the coal mine. We discussed a wide range of topics, and I'm sure you'll be interested in hearing their perspective and reactions. I'll be returning the favor in a couple of weeks, interviewing them, and Glenn and Eric will be setting up a free privacy webinar on protecting your privacy for my viewers.